you got to know what they're asking you in order to better solve it. So you got to know, am I dealing with a strengthening question or a weakening question? What are each of those asking for? But at a certain point, especially when you've already built a basic foundation and have a good proficiency in each of the question types, students typically get questions wrong just because they're hard questions. And it's not about the question type anymore. At that point, it is often about more complex methods of reasoning. You have your standard ones like correlation, causation, confusing necessary and sufficient conditions, things like that, or ad hominem personal attacks talking about flaws. But there are also more complex and less frequent methods of reasoning, things that might only show up once every 5 exams or once every 10 exams. And so unless you've got a lot of exposure to the LSAT and you've got a thorough understanding of those stimuli, you may be puzzling through that method of reasoning for the first time on test day, when actually you could have learned that previously and walked through that during your study time so that on test day you immediately recognize it and know how to handle it. So I'll give you an example of what I think is a fairly complex method of reasoning that upon reflection isn't that bad. Let's say that you're biking in New York City where there's tons of cars, it's dangerous, and you could easily get hit. So you put on a bike helmet to be safer. That's a good best practice. You want to be safe, you wear a helmet. The problem is that cars seeing you on the road, they feel more comfortable driving a little bit more recklessly because they see, oh, this guy has a helmet or this girl has a helmet. They're going to bike safely. I don't need to be as cautious as a driver. So it turns out that wearing a bike helmet could actually be less safe than not wearing a helmet at all. Now, I want to argue whether it's good to wear a helmet or bad. The point is that there could be unforeseen, unexpected consequences of a given action. And this is often referred to as a system effect, where a proposed solution to a problem actually creates a new problem. Does this come up often? No, it's pretty rare, but it has come up a handful of times on the LSAT, and this has nothing to do with question type. We could easily make this a strengthen or weaken or necessary assumption or flaw by tweaking the framing of the stimulus slightly, and of course, changing the question stem as well. And so I especially see this with, let's say, a difficult necessary assumption question. It's difficult because it contains a strange gap. You could reframe it by tweaking it slightly into a flaw question. And so what makes that question difficult is not the question stem, because you could be understanding what they're asking you. Instead, it's just a complex method of reasoning, a complex argument. When they write an argument, they haven't even necessarily thought of which question type it's going to be. And for an easy question, it doesn't really matter. But for a tougher question, you've really got to get that method of reasoning. I think anything that helps you better understand how the test is constructed, anything that helps you better see it from the test maker's perspective, is going to help you reduce those last couple of points, get those last few correct in the end. And so obviously it's tough to write a totally new logical reasoning question from scratch. But if you take an existing difficult one and just reword it or reframe it a little bit, I think that's definitely within your wheelhouse. You could totally do that. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.